magnitude ever. And what did he do? He pissed it away.
Well,
he started another war right away. He validated all of the Bush administration violations of the Constitution.
Well, let me ask you, Paul. Sorry to interrupt there, but you wrote an article that a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that was a brilliant article laying out the case for what you say is the utter fabrication of the war on terror. And I read your article point by point, and I agree with it point by point. And yet, as we saw in the debates last night, the operating illusions, the illusionary platform from which all the other candidates are operating, and even Wolf Blitzer is asking questions, and then the people in the crowd are asking questions like Edwin Meese. Their illusionary platform is that the war on terror is very, very real and very scary and very much in your face, and we have an immediate threat to our life and safety because of all these terrorists. But you were able to completely show that to be a total fraud.
Yes, we're living in George Orwell's 1984 world, where Big Brother's media tells the people every day about all the wars that they're having to combat, and it's all hokum. It's all a hoax, and it's amazing that no more than, say, a fourth of the population sees through it. It's an extraordinary thing.
That is astonishing, and it really makes me wonder about some of the reasons behind that. Later on in this show, in fact, we're going to be talking about heavy metals poisoning and how that might be impacting cognitive function and clear thinking. What do you think, in your analysis, might be behind it? Are people just easily hoodwinked? Are they brainwashed? Are they apathetic? What do you think is psychologically behind this mass denial of reality?
I think a lot of things. One is there's no media, except for individual programs like Alex Jones. There's no reporting because the media was concentrated in the last years of the Clinton administration. And it's no longer run by journalists. It's no longer independent. It's no longer diverse. And so it serves as a propaganda ministry. Gerald Celente calls them prostitutes. Yeah. Which is an apt term. So there's no source of information for people unless they work at it full time. If they're on the internet, they read foreign press, they read sites that dig up the real news. You have to, in other words, it's a huge time and energy effort to get any idea of what's really going on. Most people can't do that. The other thing, I think, which has been controlling, was they bought on to 9/11. Yeah. The minute you buy on to 9/11, you've accepted the premise for the police state, the warmonger state, the threats everywhere. And, of course, this serves the interests of the military security complex, and they keep it alive. We see this with the FBI organizing fake terror plots so they can arrest some poor dupe and scare the people further. So it's all a successful propaganda venture.
But isn't it also, it's almost comedic. It is very clownish. It's like kindergartners playing with their imaginary friends and enemies. This is what the FBI is doing, and the ATF running guns into Mexico. And the American people don't see it. How can they be so blind to it? I don't get it.
And that's a good question. How can they be so blind? But they're losing their country, their liberty, the reputation of the country. And I think we're headed toward World War III, because when you can so delude an entire population, supposedly a superpower, supposedly the richest country on the world, the best educated. The United States allegedly has 17 of the top universities in the world. And yet we have a population that can't perceive fraud, right? It's practiced on them daily. Well, it's an amazing thing. I don't know the answer, but you can see what the consequences are dire. We now have a police state. And the police state, as you point out in your brilliant article, it's trickling down. Now everyone acts like they're running a torture chamber, even nursing homes.
Oh, yeah. Just to give people some background about that article, which I called Trickle-Down Tyranny, that was about some waterboarding of an elderly woman. An 89-year-old woman in a nursing home was waterboarded by the staff in the nursing home over an argument about an ice cream sandwich. I believe it was ice cream. Yeah. So
and ice cream. That's right. It's an extraordinary thing, and we see the police, gratuitous violence, piled on violence over and over and over, spraying people in the face who are just sitting quietly with pepper spray, beating them with clubs. It's an amazing show of brutality and violence. Why aren't these police all arrested and on trial? The police don't have the right to abuse the public. The police have to follow the law like everyone else. When they violate the law, they should be arrested and held accountable. But they're not. And it's like you say, if you don't hold the president accountable when he violates the law, then you can't hold anybody else accountable. And everyone's finding that out.
Well, that's the thing. No one should be above the law. The laws must apply equally to all people across the land, including the president, including the Congress, including law enforcement, especially law enforcement. But the greatest shift that I see here that you've written about extensively, Paul, is that the government, quote, servants now see themselves as rulers. They see themselves as tyrants, and so they act out on that self-image, and then the tyranny just begins to multiply. Whoa, what do you got going on back there? You okay?
I've got two cats, and the little one thinks she's a leopard, and if the big one gets out of line, she lets him have it.
I think you're having a little trickle-down feline tyranny back there in your own house. maybe Janet Napolitano should put a camera in your living room just to make sure you're safe.
They probably have one.
No, but what do you think about this? The acting out of the self-image role of being a thuggish tyrant ruler, and that's how many of these so-called servants now see themselves.
Yes, it's as you and I both see, they're aristocrats. You remember the classic sort of protest of the unaccountability of the aristocrats is the story of the dukes or the earls' carriage being driven at great speed through the village, and it runs down the children of the peasants in the streets and goes on off. And nobody can do anything about it. Well, that's the kind of country we live in now. As long as the people doing the damage are in the security complex or high government leaders, they're untouchable. And it trickles down. I wrote a book, I think, maybe 12 years ago that Oxford University Press published called The Capitalist Revolution in Latin America, and I quoted one of the ministers in one of the South American governments, and he said, if the minister lies and steals, by the time it trickles down to the bottom, his subordinates are raping and murdering.
Yeah, right. It sort of escalates on the way down.
It goes down. You know, the notion of a nursing home waterboarding an 89-year-old woman. Before today, who would have believed such a thing?
No, exactly. This is part of what I've tried to point out in that article is that it has infected the fabric of American culture. And you see this with shows like 24 with Kiefer Sutherland, who's a great actor, but I just don't agree with the message of the show, which was torturing everybody, even little children, I believe, to get answers out because it was all justified under fighting terrorists and stopping some other violence. It's the culture now.
It's the culture. And of course, it's all contrary to everything that experts know about torture. It never gets good information.
That's right. The
person being tortured simply tries to find out what the people torturing him want to know, and then he tells them.
Yeah, so, what do you want to hear? What's it going to take to make the torture stop?
Anything to stop the torture. And particularly, see, in Guantanamo, we now know for a fact that almost everyone there was totally innocent. They were people sold by warlords to the idiot Americans who paid a bounty for them. And so they ended up having to release almost all of the people after torturing them for 5 or 6 or 7 years. So they were all totally innocent, and yet they all were tortured all those years, and no information came out. None.
Well, it's incredible, Paul. We've only got a minute left here, but can you stay with us after this break for a few more minutes?
if you like.
Okay.
A few more.
I'd really like to ask you a couple more questions, but quickly, as we go to break, where do you think this is heading? Has Ron Paul made his point and awakened enough people, or are we still muddling through la-la land of illusions and terrorism fantasies by the globalists?
Yes, I don't think Ron Paul can awaken more than about 20% of the population. The rest of them, I think, are lost. And to answer the earlier question, to complete it, psychologically, many Americans think of themselves as, the great people.
Right.
And
Paul, stay with us. We're going to go to break right now, but we'll be right back with more from Paul Craig Roberts here on The Alex Jones Show. Stay right there. Welcome back, folks, to The Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the health ranger here, getting ready to fry a turkey. And we've got Paul Craig Roberts joining us by Skype. I am dressed in full fire gear. I've got Nomex gloves. I've got a fireman's helmet here. Yeah, you hear that? I've got fireproof goggles on, melt-proof goggles, and I've got a respirator on the floor. We're going to cook a turkey, man, and we're going to do it Janet Napolitano style. Yeah, because they put out a warning yesterday, an official tweet from the Department of Homeland Security that says, watch out, Americans, your turkey might burn down your house if you cook it wrong. I am so happy that we're now getting recipe instructions from Janet Napolitano, how to make ogre pie, things like that. I can't wait to see what the Christmas recipes are going to be from Janet Napolitano. But, Paul, if you'll stay with us for a second, I want to ask your reaction on this. But for those watching on Prisonplanet.tv, let's go to the video and show the firemen cooking a turkey and showing you how dangerous it is and how it might burn down your house. Go to that.
Tested several models of deep-fat turkey fryers and find that this method of cooking can be very hazardous. Looks like our partially frozen turkey is ready.
Here they go.
Our temperature's at 350 degrees.
All right, they're showing a big turkey cooking deep fryer sitting on a wooden deck. Now they got a fireman there with a full helmet, full respirator, Nomex hood. He's walking up with his fireman boots and he's got a turkey in his hands. Oh my God, he's taking the lid off the turkey cooking device. He's going to drop the turkey down into it. Oh my God, there's fire everywhere, flames everywhere. It's burning up the turkey. It's burning up the deck.
Units can be overfilled, and when that happens,
I've never seen such kitchen terror in my life.
The unit to catch on fire.
It's catching on fire.
One of our safety concerns with
all right, now they're giving you the safety rundown.
Watch how easy it is to tip it over.
Are they going to tip it over? Oh, the oil just came out.
In our laboratory, we use water. Can you imagine?
It's a dangerous cooking device. All right, enough of that. Enough of that video. It's getting hot in here. All right, I got to take all this gear off. Look, I don't mean to make light of kitchen cooking accidents, because you can have fires in the kitchen, and you should have a fire extinguisher in the kitchen. Cook with Nomex gloves like these, huh? Little Nomex gloves, terror grip gloves. But isn't this getting ridiculous, where the Department of Homeland Security is now telling us what to cook or how to cook things? I mean, it's crazy. All right, Paul Craig Roberts, thanks for bearing with me on that. I'm taking off all the fire gear now. What do you think about all that video stuff?
Well, it didn't come through, but I could hear it. And I suspect that very soon the Department of Homeland Security will declare turkey cookers to be terrorist devices. And if you have one, you'll be arrested. It'll be proof that you are planning a terrorist act.
Oh, well, it's hard to say. They're going to come up with all kinds of new things to scare us with. It just seems like the overriding theme of everything they put out there is be afraid, spy on your neighbor, be paranoid. Isn't this the opposite of what they should be teaching people, really?
Especially when there's no threat. You know, what terrorist threat have we suffered other than 9/11? And there's a great deal of dissent that this was actually done by the Saudi Arabians from abroad. All the others are staged by the FBI. There are no other terrorist examples here. And yet we have this huge department that I think consumes $80 billion a year, and which is now stopping traffic on the nation's highways.
Right. Thanksgiving Day traffic.
And they're you know, so bureaucracies always grow as rapidly, and